As steals the morn upon the night and melts the shades away, so truth does fancy's charm dissolve, and rising reason puts to flight the fumes that did the mind involve, restoring intellectual day. Those words are from an 18th century oratorio by Handel, and they're adapted from a 17th century poem by Milton, taking up the concepts of enlightenment in the 18th century. The concept of darkness and light coming out, darkness as ignorance and light as in intelligence, reason, knowledge. So what's that got to do with this little sculpture? You see, smaller than my hand. Small, but monumental in feeling. And we can see here a goddess. This is the goddess Athena, or Minerva, who was the Roman equivalent of Athena. This is Minerva, and she's holding her owl, one of her great symbols. And the owl was of wisdom, and the owl comes out of darkness and gives us light. And this concept goes back even to the Bible. The people that walk in darkness have seen a great light. So the concept of light and darkness, knowledge, and the opposite of knowledge, superstition, ignorance, is something that goes back thousands of years. So she's a small sculpture, but she packs a real punch. We see her dressed in a peplos with an overfold at the top, and on top of that, she is wearing her aegis. The edges of it have got these little writhing snake's heads. Within the centre, head of one of the gorgons. The aegis is a skin of an animal, but it could also be the skin of a giant called Pallas, and it's Pallas Athena. That's how she gets her name, Pallas. As so was often the case in the ancient world, although we can say that Pallas was a giant, it may also be the case that Pallas was somebody that Athena knew as a girl and accidentally killed and took on her name. I particularly like the way her hair cascades down over the back of the aegis, little tiny curls, so delicate. Her raised left arm would have originally held a spear. And we've already established that in her right arm, rather unusually, it's not often you see the owl still there, is her owl. She's wearing a Corinthian helmet with a high crest made of horsehair, which is wonderfully incised. So you get this sense of height and certain sense of warlikeness, because Minerva was associated with war, not like Ares or Mars, her Roman equivalent. She was much more involved with the strategy of war. But more than that, she was the goddess of wisdom, we've already established, but she was the goddess of the arts and of commerce. So perhaps she should be my patron goddess, because that, unbelievably, is what I'm involved in. The monumentality of her pose, despite the small size, is created largely through her very upright stance. The long vertical folds of her dress only emphasize this. One of the epithets of Athena and Minerva was the term bright-eyed. And although the sockets of this particular example are empty, they would originally have had insets of glass, which would only have emphasized this bright-eyed nature. Again, we see the concept of light and darkness, intelligence, wisdom, and the opposites that it emerges from. The name Minerva comes from the Etruscan Minerva, which is connected with concepts of intelligence and memory. Minerva is an intelligent, wise goddess. Her owl was most famously used in ancient Greek coinage from Athens, where it's seen stamped onto one of the sides, staring out at us with its wide, unblinking gaze. Minerva was connected with many things, including poetry and music. And her name crops up still in contemporary popular culture. There are pop songs, if you want to call Scritti-Politti pop. Green Gartside mentions the Owl of Minerva. There's also a group called Deftones, a whole song called Minerva. And David Bowie, of course, recorded a song called Pallas Athena, which was about the power of religion. And if you're a fan of Harry Potter, then you'll know that Professor McGonagall's name is Minerva, not chosen by chance, I'm sure. For many people in these islands, you might sort of feel that Britannia has overtones of Minerva. She most certainly does. She wears the same long peplos and she wears a Corinthian helmet. So Minerva is around us. She's in the past, the distant past. She's in the terms of the Enlightenment in the 18th century. She's in the 20th century. She's in the 21st century. She still lives. Some people say the old gods are dead. Are they?